Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Let's get started on some more watercolor practice. And we are going to jump into doing some integrated watercolor washes, and we're going to be using these two colors. We're going to do the wet on dry, and then we're going to do the wet on wet. And then again, we're going to add some trees in that tapping motion to get that watercolor practice in, but then overall just get a nice, simple painting that makes you feel like you accomplished something when you're doing these basic watercolor practices. I have these two colors already over here on my palette. So I am just going to take that size 12 round brush. I'm going to fill it up with water, and I'm going to start with the pink on top. So I'm going to go into my palette and I'm reactivating that. I have a decent amount of water on my brush to reactivate it, and then I'm going to my paper towel and I'm tapping off extra. And right when you get just like that little dot right there, that lets you know you have enough water on your brush to get the paint to move, but it's not going to be so much that it's going to start puddling as you paint. And that is just such an important thing to learn as you're a beginner, because paint control is just one of the hardest things with watercolor. So now I'm just going to go straight into my painting. And again, this is the wet on dry. And then right when I feel like my paint is starting to go away, I'm going to clean my brush off, and I'm going to work rather quickly. I'm going to go right into my purple, do the same thing. And then I'm going to jump right in underneath. And I want those two colors to touch while the paint is still wet. Otherwise, you're either going to get a harsh line. I'm going to get a little bit more paint on my brush. Otherwise, you're going to get a harsh line, or you're going to get some blooms. That's why it's really important to tap your brush off on your paper towel to try to get that exact same water consistency in the brush, so you don't create any blooms if you want a just nice flat wash. Sometimes it's really great to get those blooms. All right, so there's our first integrated wash. We have the pink on top, and it blends perfectly into the purple. I have darker pink up top, and as my brush just naturally lost the amount of paint that it had, it lightened up, and then it smoothly transitioned into that purple. If you want, you can get a little more purple, and you can go up into your pink a little bit, and that will create a little bit more of a transitioning point where those two colors mix. But you don't have to do that. You could just leave it as is. All right, so now we're going to clean our brush off, get nice clean water, and we are going to fill in our other side. And once that's full, we're going to just repeat the same process. And the best part about this, when you work wet on wet, you don't have to work as quickly as you do when you work wet on dry. When you work wet on dry, these colors are going to dry so fast. Where over here, this surface is going to stay wet while we mix our colors on the side. So I'm going to go into that pink color. I'm going to tap off a little, and then we're going to start in at the top. I like to go angled when I do these kind of like sunsets. It just kind of helps the painting not to feel so flat. I'm working back up a little bit. Going to get a little bit more pink. Remember, watercolor is always going to dry lighter too than you place it. So sometimes in like an actual painting, you're going to want to do this in a few layers to get the depth that you want, so you don't overwork your painting. So now I'm going to rinse my brush off. Clean that off, get some clean water, reactivate that purple. I'm going to tap it off a little bit more. And then I'm going to start down here actually, because this is the wet on wet, and I'm going to go up toward my pink. So down here is going to be a nice vibrant purple that isn't mixed yet with the pink, and then I'm going to come up into the pink and allow these two colors to naturally mix, kind of work those back and forth a little bit. And then there we have our wet on dry, our wet on wet. We're going to let these both dry. You're going to see kind of the differences, but overall they really are going to look the same. This one I feel like just gives you a little bit more flexibility with time if you haven't prepared your colors ahead of time, or you just want the more flexibility of taking your time as you paint. I feel like wet on wet is just great for that. So we're going to let these two dry, and then we're going to come back in, do our tapping motions as exercise, but also make some really pretty trees in our foreground. All right, so now that our painting has dried, we are going to get our size 0 round brush and just use whatever small rounded tip brush that you have. And we're going to get it a little bit damp, and then I'm just going to take my paper towel and just kind of roll it just to get any like pooling water out of it. And I'm going to try to get a super dark concentrated purple on my brush. And then I'm going again to tap off. Every time I get paint, I always come and just at least do one tap on my paper towel before I keep painting. It just really does the best with that water control. We're going to come over here and we are going to do those tapping motions again to create our trees. So again, I'm going to start pretty high over here, do a quick little line, and then I'm just going to tap. I'm going to get a little bit more paint on my brush and tap off again on that paper towel. And I'm just going to keep on going downward. Again, just make sure you're doing these side motions with your brush. I'm going to get more paint since I'm keeping it super dark. And then you're just going to keep tapping side motions, kind of creating the shape of the tree that you see in your head, or maybe you've looked up a reference photo. Get a little bit more water on my brush, get a little bit more paint, tap off that extra paint, and keep tapping. All right, so I'm going to clean my brush off, get some clean water on there, and then I'm going to go into a very concentrated pink. And we're going to just do those tapping motions, get a little bit drier. So you can tell it's a little bit more of a dry brush right now. You're going to get some of those scratchy marks. And we're just going to create a circle shape with these tapping motions. This is going to give us some practice in creating more of an actual forest rather than just a row of pine trees. This is how you can create a nice maple tree. And then, just to keep it consistent, I'm going to go back into that pink and get a really concentrated pink on the tip of my brush, and then I'm going to create my tree trunk by pulling this down very lightly with the tip of my brush. You don't want that to be too wide. I'm just going to kind of snake that little line through. So that really concentrated paint on my brush is allowing me to have this paint be darker than that original paint color I put in. And that's just the beauty of watercolor. When it comes to painting, you can create so many values, but just from one paint color. I'm going to fill in this tree a little bit more with some of that darker paint. And again, this is just practice, but you feel like you're really making a full painting. And then I'm going to clean my brush. And I'm going to go back into my purple paint. And we are going to finish this section off. Let's see. I'm going to start a little bit lower. And I'm going to create another evergreen tree, just again by using those very light tapping motions. And I'm going to make it feel like it's tucked behind this tree by not allowing these branches to cover anything. And we're just going to do those tapping motions all the way down to the bottom of the painting. to fill in and finish off this painting, this section. And now we're going to move on to our second side of the painting. To rinse off our brush, get some fluidy purple paint, and we are going to just tap it in again. Kind of give it like a misty fairyland feel with these colors. Thank you for watching another video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. I will see you in the next video. Bye!